This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 44. You're listening to Comic Geek Speak, episode 44, brought to you in conjunction with worldfamouscomics.com, the best spot on the internet for all your comic book news. I'm Brian Deemer.
I'm Kevin Moyer.
Jamie D.
I'm Shane Kelly.
I'm Peter Rios.
We are sexy bitches, yeah!
That's right, and don't forget it.
I like being a sexy beach.
Sexy beach.
I am a sexy beach.
I'm gonna put your bells in a sling. You fartigan arsehole.
I'm gonna
Ice
cut off
cream.
your arms. I'm gonna
Fargan,
shove them up your,
sneaky asshole.
you forgan cork
Sneaky
sucker.
bastard.
All right, now that we got Johnny Dangerously out of the way. So, Peter, you had something to mention on
Sure.
the show? Wait.
Oh.
Before we get started, we have to remind everybody about our
Yes,
current
the contest.
contest.
I
We
forgot
always forget to do that. Our current contest is win a spot on the show. That's basically the gist of it. You could be a regular correspondent on the show by covering manga or anime for us. So what we would like you to do is to create a 3 to 4 minute segment that covers what's cool or new in anime and or manga, and send it to us. And then at the end of August, that is the deadline, we will review all the entries we have and we will pick our favorite one. And that person will become our official, manga
Correspondent.
and yes, and then we want 2 people, one for manga and one for anime. So that's the deal. So hop to it, send us your entries.
Cool.
All right, Peter.
All right. August, important dates in the comic industry. We do this every month, and here they are for August. 1917, August 28th, Jack Kirby was born.
What's so important about that?
Who's he?
Yeah.
Who's he? August 16th, 1935, get out your calculators, Julie Newmar was born.
No, honestly, who's Jack Kirby?
Shut up. See, this is why we had to do it first. Cause
What was that date? Julie Newmar? What was the date?
August 16th,
1935.
1935.
Wow.
That would be 80.
80 years old.
No,
excuse
70.
me?
70.
70, thank you.
70.
70.
She's still hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When she comes out in interviews all made up still.
Yeah.
1941, cover date of August of 1941 is Police Comics #1, first appearance of Jack Cole's Plastic Man. And that same cover date, Military Comics #1, is the first appearance of the Blackhawks. We have 1957, August 7th, Mark Bagley was born in Frankfurt, Germany. 1958, August 15th, Jack Cole took his own life, leaving no note or explanation. We have here 1962, cover date of August 1962, Amazing Fantasy number 15.
I knew that was coming.
Kevin,
Yeah.
what is it?
Amazing Fantasy Fit. What do you mean?
What is it? What's so special about
Oh,
that?
the first appearance of Spider-Man.
Right. And
Yeah,
then
what's so special about it?
Who's Spider-Man?
and that same cover date, we have Journey into Mystery 1983, first appearance of Thor. August 11th, 1964, Jim Lee was born. We have a cover date of August/September of 1972. Marvel starts to use Stan Lee Presents for their credit boxes. Amazing Spider-Man 111 is believed to be the first comic to do so.
Do you think they'll ever stop doing that?
No. I kind of hope not. I like
No. 50 years after his death,
Yeah.
they'll still be Stan Lee Presents.
Sure.
I think they should.
They should. Yeah.
Wasn't
Without
there
him.
some talk about taking it off, I thought?
Well,
a
I
couple
thought
years
after he
ago,
left the
wasn't it?
company, yeah.
We heard there was an interesting story at the Gru panel at San Diego. They wanted to put Stan Lee Presents Gru the Wanderer, and they're like, no. It's just because it's under the Epic imprint, which is
right.
under Marvel, but it doesn't take place in the Marvel universe. It doesn't use any Marvel characters. Stan Lee had nothing to do with the creation of any of these characters, and they fought it until finally they said, oh, okay, you don't have to put Stan Lee Presents. Because they weren't going to publish it. They were going to say, no, we're not doing it if you make us put
That's
Stan Lee
interesting.
Presents. Yeah, it's kind of...
Yeah.
All right, here we go. 1977, cover date of August 1977. Iron Fist 14 is the first appearance of, anybody know?
Sabretooth.
Sabretooth, yep. Cover date of August 1984, Legion of Superheroes #1 and New Teen Titans #1. DC's Baxter line begins. August 21st.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What exactly does that? Is that just because they started printing on that paper?
Yeah.
So they define that as a run, like
I think it's just something that kind of caught on with everybody.
Yeah.
Instead of saying Volume 2, everybody said the Baxter.
Baxter.
Same thing with Batman and the
Yeah.
Outsiders and Outsiders. Outsiders went into a Baxter format. Did they call it maybe deluxe format or something?
No,
Oh,
I
It was always
Yeah,
Baxter format. I never heard it being
I
deluxe.
never heard it deluxe.
Yeah, but it's just something that caught on.
Yeah. Okay.
I lost my place. August 21st, 1984, Phil Seuling dies. Anybody know who he is?
Who the hell's that?
You should know who he
Yeah,
is.
he did conventions, didn't he?
He's also he's the one. Isn't he the one he is the one who started the direct market, direct comic shop, one of the first ones.
Okay.
I'm
I
pretty
thought
sure
he,
that's who
yeah,
it
and I
was.
thought he did conventions.
Maybe
like
he did that too.
The big like Atlantic conventions, Mid-Atlantic stuff.
Yeah, could be. I should research more on that. Cover date August 1980. August 1st of 1985. This is when it was actually released. Crisis on Infinite Earths number 8. It was the death of Barry Allen.
Now suppose somebody didn't read that, man.
Oh, please. 1986, cover date of August 86. All-Star Squadron number 60 is the final appearance of Earth 2 as we know it. Cover date August 1987, Teen Titans Spotlight 13, first comic work by J. Michael Straczynski. Cover date of August 90, Spider-Man number 1 by Todd McFarlane sells roughly 8 million copies.
Yep,
Man,
I remember that.
Were there variants to that?
Oh
or
yeah,
just what-
Yeah.
there was a color one.
There was a green webbing
silver.
and then the silver webbing. And
Those
a
are the
gold
first
webbing
gold
too.
webbing.
Then.
Yeah, that was eventually, and then they went to
Platinum?
platinum. Yeah.
8 million
But you know what's crazy is in the 40s, comics were selling 20 million copies.
Yeah.
That
So
is
that's
crazy.
still a drop in the bucket compared to the comics heyday.
Well, and I think
Yeah,
that
well, that's a big difference too when you're spending $3 for an issue, $3 for an issue,
Or
and
a
also
dime.
paying 10 cents for an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the adjustment is for
Conversion.
inflation, but I mean, a lot more kids were reading comics.
but that again was all speculation on Spider-Man
Well,
number 1.
And I also think that it's also because of the market. You didn't have TV, you didn't have
Right.
all the
Sure.
outside
Sure.
influences,
Oh, yeah.
so that was an entertainment.
Yep. Cover date August 1994. Sandman Mystery Theater Annual 1, Alex Ross's first work for DC Comics. August 1st, 1997, Spawn the movie opens. August 15th, 1997, Steel the movie opens.
oh,
There's another one.
August is not a good movie.
So 1997 was a great year for movies. August 18th of that same year, Jeep Swenson, who played Bane in the Batman and Robin movie, died at the age of 40 from heart failure.
Steroids.
Yeah. August 21st, 1998, probably the reason why comic movies, eventually took off. Blade the movie opens, written by David S. Goyer. Everybody kind of always seems to credit X-Men, but really that's kind of the one, you're starting to get some good movies. Cover date August 1999, JSA number 1, comics' first superhero team returns. Also of August 99, cover date Wizard of the Comics magazine 96. A one ad appears for comic creators for cross-generation comics.
Oh,
Carl Barks, the legendary Disney Ducks writer and artist, died on August 25th of 2000. We have August 30th of 2000. Joe Quesada replaces Bob Harris as EIC at Marvel. We got August 16th of 2002. Brian Paluto announces that Chaos Comics has filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. August 6th, 2003 was the ship date.
that's really a loss, though, because those Lady Death comics or whatever were really.
somebody else picked up those now.
I know.
Yeah.
When I heard about that, I was like, thank God we don't need this crap in the marketplace.
It's like the old Belushi sketch, the thing that wouldn't leave.
Yeah.
Doesn't go away.
I mean, I guess there's people who like it because obviously they sold
They
comics,
sell.
but I just look at them and go, who gives a rat's ass? I mean, really.
But there was a Lady Death Sojourn crossover that was in the work.
Yeah.
And George Perez was
Yeah.
going to do the artwork for.
It's just such a.
There
I
is
mean,
a market for it. A lot of the heavy metal,
I guess.
musicians and stuff.
And
they
I'm
get
sure
into
some
that
of the listeners loved it or whatever, and I apologize if I'm insulting you, but I just don't understand it.
I didn't get the whole thing, but I did appreciate what he did. I thought his artwork was really nice. It was in a genre that I didn't read, the Evil Ernie and stuff like that. And, it came out at a time where big breasts were what were selling comics, which I am not opposed to in any way. But I did appreciate Peluto's work, and I can't even remember who the other artist was him with him who died of cancer. Can't think of his name. Somebody will rescue me on the board or somebody when they hear this. Another gentleman who's with him, also his artwork, Steven something or other, I can't think of his name, was also very good and very influential in that genre.
And we have two more here. August 6, 2003, Superman Batman #1 released. August 15th of 2003, American Splendor, the movie opens based on Harvey Picar's comic book and life. That's August dates.
There you go.
Cool.
I love going through those dates.
I know, it's interesting.
All right.
What's next?
Well, you're supposed to give a rundown of Zero Hour for
God.
the email from last episode.
Right. Can I do it without spoil? There's not really anything big in that. It was Dan Jurgens. They felt that the crisis, the stuff that happened after the crisis on Infinite Earths, they didn't quite take advantage of what they could do. Meaning, what Marv Wolfman's idea was to just start the entire universe over again. Everybody start from #1 or just totally create new versions of the characters. And obviously DC didn't want to do that. So I guess they eventually got down to the 0 Hour or 1994, and Dan Jurgens pitched an idea that somebody liked. And the whole premise behind it was that Monarch from Armageddon 2001, which was a crossover from 3 years earlier, he absorbed Wave Rider, which was his other time character, and became this character called Extant. And he was going to, zap time, absorb time, whatever. It was a typical crossover fare. But so all these strange things started to pop up. Like Batgirl came back, but she was a Batgirl from an earlier time. Different versions of characters were running around, two Green Arrows, things like that. And it's hard to explain because he's right. The listener who asked us about this in a previous episode, there really wasn't much going on. It just was like these random chaotic things. Hawkman, all these versions of Hawkman just were all absorbed into one. We got a new legion of superheroes out of it. Really, I think it was just a way to give Parallax something to do, which was Hal Jordan, who just recently went crazy like a year or two before that.
Well, that, and I thought when they originally solicited this, they were going to clean up the loose ends that were left over by Crisis, doing stuff with the JSA,
right?
Taking care of them, doing like you said, merging all the different the 45 or 50 different Hawkmen into one character supposedly.
And I guess one of the biggest ones was Superboy, like the Superboy starting the Legion of Superheroes, which they did kind of correct in that 5 years later Legion of Superheroes by making it Mon-El as the inspiration instead of Superboy, since there never was a Superboy.
Yeah, and they even had done it with like the little pocket universe they created. That's where the Superboy came from.
Right, and then they retconned that even. So there were so many different futures, there were so many different pasts, and they said, okay, let's try to clean it up once and for all. So they had this 0 Hour, and what happened was basically nothing. I mean,
gave us one thing.
Gave us Starman.
Well, yeah, but as far as the story itself goes, I really don't think they did anything to clean up anything. Because what happened was they totally rebooted the Legion of Superheroes. They started from scratch, and that run became nothing more than just retelling stories of the old Legion lore.
It was just almost a relaunch type point,
right?
For different jumping on point for a lot of the stories.
And they did that by the next month. In 1994, every book had a 0 issue, and some things started new, like Starman. I think we mentioned this before. Roy Thomas was furious when what they did with the JSA, because the JSA had just come back. They had been in limbo since Crisis. You know what? I think that deserves a quarter.
Peter's just tired of being the only one paying.
Yeah, exactly. And they put the JSA away after the Crisis. He went away. They went away in limbo, fighting all these like Ragnarok type characters like Surtur and the big giant snake.
Yeah, whole big Ragnarok.
Yeah, thank you. And they brought him back a year or two before, and then they had him, and then they wind up killing like 3 of them, and like they aged all the rest of them. They really like Roy Thomas was furious. So I don't know. It just you had an outcome, but it really didn't matter. You know?
Yeah, because to me at that time I was upset because they actually had a Justice Society of America.
That's right.
Book. Martin Pascoe and I can't.
Was it Parabeck?
It might have been. Yeah. They had done it, and it was a good book. It was one of those books that you could recommend to all ages. Mm-hmm. It was just really well done, really well written, and they kind of effed that up. I mean, they gave us JSA out of it, so I guess I can't be that upset. But at the time, I was kind of pissed.
Right. So basically, it was a way to just like kind of jumpstart their interest in your book, and we did get decent things. We got Starman. Aquaman had already had like, at least one issue out before the 0 Hour came out, and we got that. Wonder Woman, I think William Messner Loebs and Mike Deodato Jr. came onto the book. They brought in Artemis as Wonder Woman. I know I'm missing some. They changed the lineup on New Titans. Like I said, Legion of Superheroes was rebooted. They got a new Dr. Fate series out of it called Book of Fate, or just Fate, I think. A new Manhunter. Batman even, they tweaked him a little bit, but it wasn't anything that really stuck. So I guess if you want to read it just to read it to see exactly what happened, it's not bad. The artwork's kind of decent,
But what you're saying is it's not freaking Swear.
No. It's not as important to the DC universe, I feel, like Crisis was. And it really kind of was just, it was an event that the best thing that came out of it probably is Starman, and the other best thing is, you got all those 0 issues that if you wanted to start fresh and new on a book, that was your chance, So maybe somebody else has a different opinion out there, but
I never read any of it. But
yeah.
I personally, I'm a little sick and tired of events, especially for events' sake.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Infinite Crisis seems like some people who really care about the DC universe tossed around some ideas, and they're going to give us a good thing. I don't think it's just to drum up sales or anything, but I'm just kind of like, can we just go 5 years without any damn crossovers? Like, I don't mind when a character pops up in another character's book. Like, that's cool because it gives me the sense of continuity within the universe. But I'm so sick and tired of, you got to read this to understand that, and you got to read this to get that, and don't want to get left out, so you better read this. And I just want to read the damn books that I like, and I just want to go a couple years straight without any friggin' crossovers.
I agree with you, Brian. I'm kind of disillusioned by crossovers. I don't think, not that they're not enjoyable. They have their moments and they're pertinent to certain things, but I'm kind of lacklustered about getting into them. So I kind of
yeah.
Well, I always feel that most of the time you're disappointed by the end of the crossover.
Right.
Like it's built up to be something, even if it doesn't sound interesting at first, at least captures somebody's interest. But by the end of it, you're just, it did nothing, it means nothing, and it was kind of crappy in the end anyway.
I mean, I don't say there's no room for them. I don't say there's no reason for them.
Yeah, when they're done right.
But I think, like we had said at one point, was wait, think things through, build it up, make it worthwhile, make it pertinent, make it entertaining, and then it's worthwhile.
And sow the
instead of just throwing
seeds
something
a
out.
couple years before. Like sprinkle little things here and there in various books that maybe we don't think are anything important. And then when it finally boils down and you're going to have this crossover, again, because it needs to happen, or someone has this idea that's so good that everyone agrees that it's the way to go, and then you do it, and maybe once every 10 years you get something cool. But this, lately it hasn't been quite so bad. For a while, it was like every single summer there was a crossover. It was
yeah.
So I get 8 issues of a book that are standalone, and then the next 4 issues are crossover issues. It's like, that is not cool. I'm so tired of that nonsense. Like right now, they're starting this. Well, in this new previews, they're starting this Spider-Man crossover thing, whatever.
The 12-part.
It's other, yeah. And the first Peter David Spider-Man, I'm like all excited, and it's part of this crossover. I don't give a shit about the goddamn Spider-Man crossover. I just want to read Peter David on Spider-Man. I'm so excited. Brand new book. Start at number 1. New style. New flavor to the book.
Yeah.
And the first friggin' thing is it's a crossover. Oh, I was so disappointed when I read previews. I'm like, can I just read Spider-Man? Can it just happen? I mean,
Yeah. I mean,
I
there's
don't know.
what you're talking about them, spreading the seed and stuff like that. Like that's kind of what this is all going on with DC. They also did that. I felt Jeff Loeb did that with Superman way back when he started writing it, and then it morphed into Our Worlds at War, which some people liked, some people didn't. I kind of dug it.
I liked it.
Yeah, I did too.
I did. It's good.
And I thought Marvel did a great job with their Avengers Operation Galactic Storm, which we actually talked about on the forum just recently. It crossed over into all their major Avengers books and solo character titles, and each one furthered the plot, made it a bigger story, and it was only 19 chapters, and it was good. It was enjoyable. I liked it.
You also didn't have to read it all.
No.
That was the whole thing, because I didn't read any of the stuff that I wasn't reading.
Mhm.
Of course, I was reading Avengers and a couple others, but I could read those books. I was getting something out of it, and I didn't feel that I missed anything by not reading
Right.
the other books.
Right. And so, I mean, the way they did that was great. It was all the Marvel annuals that had the crossovers, and DC did like
Planet DC.
Yeah, what were
JL
those?
Ape.
Blood Ties. That was a crossover
Ape.
that was bad.
JL Ape.
Eclipso.
Eclipso wasn't horrible, but yeah, you had to get all those annuals.
Yeah.
They were really big on the annual.
Thank
right.
God they stopped with the annual
Yeah.
nonsense.
Yeah, even Day of Judgment wasn't all
No.
that great.
No.
And I think you liked it more than me. I didn't like Invasion that much, but you liked it a little
Yeah,
more than me.
I liked it. I kind of I thought that was an interesting idea, but
Yeah.
it's
I mean, that's hard when they do the crossovers and do it just in annuals. I mean, that's because
Yeah,
Marvel's done that
that's-
too with the Serpent Crown affair, and
Evolutionary War.
Atlantis
Evolutionary War,
Attacks.
Atlantis Attacks. Yeah, so I mean, that's a lot of money to plunk down, and then not
Because
be
they're all
not,
$4 or whatever.
Yeah.
not to be pleased with what you're reading. So
Mhm.
I mean, that's tough.
or to do the Executioner song, and it's so convoluted
Yeah.
and so. What am I doing? You're trying to read it and you're just not getting it.
Well, that's how I kind of like. I mean, DC kind of did it with Identity Crisis. Is okay. It's like sort of like a crossover, but it's just done within its own miniseries.
Mhm.
I mean, there were things that tied into some books, but again, you didn't have to read Identity Crisis to know to understand the regular monthly titles, and you certainly didn't have to read the regular monthly titles to understand what happened in Identity Crisis.
Right.
So it's like if you want to do this giant cataclysmic event in a universe where everybody's in it, just give me a miniseries and I'll just buy that, and you can sprinkle things in the issues, but don't make me read the event and don't make me buy a whole mess of issues if I don't want to. I think that's a compromise. You could have one of those every year. What the hell do I care? Because if I don't want to buy it, I don't want to buy it, and I can just keep reading my
Yeah.
monthly book and la-di-da-di-da. Now, because I want continuity, I want it mentioned, but I don't want to have to go off and read something else while I'm reading my
Now
book.
here's an interesting thing, because Brian just mentioned the other day that you are buying the Infinite Crisis issues, not waiting for the trade,
Correct.
right? So, and most of us, like Shane, I'm sure, maybe Jamie, we're going to be reading it monthly, but we get all the other stuff as well.
Yeah.
So it'll be an interesting thing to see what you get out of it from
Just
just
reading.
those 8 issues or 7 issues, whatever it is, and what we get out of it
Go
by
ahead.
reading the other
Yeah.
stuff. Because I'm never of the mind that they're forcing me to get the other stuff. You know what I mean? Because I'm interested in enough that I will get the others, and half the time I'm reading the other stuff anyway. So
I agree.
that'll
also-
be an interesting kind of experiment when we get to that.
I also think this event, and I mean, I know we pimp DC's time right now much more than Marvel, and it's not meant to single out DC all the time, like we've talked about before, how we do like Marvel titles. But I think this is the first thing. This Superman Wonder Woman sacrifice storyline is the first thing I feel like people. I haven't read it yet, but I feel like people need to read to get the rest of the story, whereas most of the other universe, it's mentioned, it has some things in it, but you don't need to read almost anything. If you read, like Brian says, the miniseries, if you read Rand Thanagar War, if you read OMAC, you'll get the gist of everything else, and this 4-issue sacrifice thing.
the sacrifice ties right into OMAC.
Yeah.
So
You
that-
have,
and
you
that
have to read that.
You
if
have
you
to
know
read it.
about
But I feel like that's the first thing they've made that makes me want to
Right,
read
exactly,
just those
exactly.
issues. Everything else is superfluous, and if you read it, great, and if you don't have to.
Kevin's comment about taking your time, we were talking about downstairs, and you said we talked. You can take it.
Well, it's when you plan things out, it gives it more energy. It gives you more things to do with it, rather than something that seems to appear to be just thrown out just to have an event, and then it really doesn't acclimate to anything. It's really just kind of there, and I think you're getting that feeling with what's happening with DC and what they're doing with Identity Crisis. And you can tell that this thing was very thought out, planned very well. All characters were taken into effect of what the effects are going to be from this. And you look at the results. It's very popular. The people that are into the books already are very much more into them and really into reading the story. And it's getting other people to read the books that didn't read them before. And that's the benefit of having an issue of something like this. So I think it's going to benefit from what they're doing.
Well, I think DC is in the unique situation where they have this, I don't know, for lack of a better word, this cadre of writers who are all really into the DC universe. They all love it. They're all
talk
friends.
to each other. Yeah.
They talk to each other. They toss around ideas. And when something sticks with all 4 of them, or 5 of them, or however many there are, and they go, we can all work with that.
Yeah.
And then they toss out the ideas, and they tell each other what's going to happen in their books, and they go, oh, I like that. Well, maybe that idea is not so hot. Maybe you should do this. And they go, oh. So basically, the 4 of them are agreeing on what's going to happen in like 10 different DC books, and they're all on the same page. And then they run it by Dan DiDio, and he says, ooh, I like that idea, or whatever. And Marvel has Bendis, whom I love, but he's more or less the only guy who's really got his hands in the Marvel pot.
And Mark Millar.
Yeah,
so
and
they
he works
have
with him on a couple things.
right.
But
So there is some sort of communication between, but not on the level
not to the extent of DC.
of what DC has, and I think that's a very good thing to have. I think it's if you're going to do an event, that's what you need to have, so that way
Exactly.
everything
Right.
needs to be
Right.
in continuity
When
and
you
in
force
place.
a writer to say, "Hey, this is what's going on. Write this," they go,
You have to
"I
throw
don't
2
wanna
issues of your
friggin' write
run in
that."
for this crossover, and you got to fill in 2 issues and tie it in with that.
And possibly break your run of
Exactly.
storyline.
So that's when it becomes a stumbling block.
And that's actually kind of happening in Marvel with the House of M tie-ins. If they were mid storyline, whoop, now you got to worry about this.
Is that how the old Marvel bullpen used to work? Where they would sit around and toss ideas back and forth for the whole universe, or
That was mostly an artist thing, right?
Yeah, that was more just artists and doing, the touch-ups, the word balloons, things of that nature. You had Romita's Raiders doing all the art touch-up and stuff like that. I mean, for the general portion of the beginning of Marvel, it was all Stan Lee. He would, bring the artists into the book and bring it in and sit there and do a powwow with them, and they would sit there and take notes and go home and draw the book. So, I mean, it was sort of that format, but you had one man doing it, not 4 or 5 writers doing it.
I mean, it's great that Marvel's trying to keep up with what DC's doing, but like we said, it's almost like you wish they just kind of would have just hang back for this
wait.
year and just give us all the great stuff next
think
year.
about it, do it
Plan it.
next year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to compete, shine
Yeah.
your own time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And it'll happen. It ebbs and flows with both companies.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
just DC answered their call,
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So there it is. Kevin, you have to explain to someone about Moon Knight.
Yeah. Well, let's
The same guy.
Let's do this quick and get it very efficient here. So, Moon Knight is Mark Specter,
Okay,
who's
time's up.
son of a rabbi. Okay, time's up. You got that now?
What do you mean? He's a Jewish guy.
Yes, who's a rabbi who escaped during Nazi Germany, and
The Schwartz was with him.
but
May the Schwartz be with you.
he had a confliction with his father, so he wasn't into what he did. So he went and joined the Marines, and in the Marines became a boxer, and then ended up getting into the CIA, and then had some interest in doing what he was doing at the CIA, but then all the red tape and all the politics got to him, so then he ended up becoming a mercenary, thinking that he could go around the red tape of politics, and which eventually then caught up to him yet as well. He ended up doing a lot of revolutionary wars in Africa and Central America. So in that time, then he rebelled against his leader in the mercenaries, and basically was left for dead in the Egyptian desert, and was taken in by these people who actually the person he tried to save was killed, but his daughter actually took Mark into a temple and supposedly had died and been revived by the god Khonshu, which was the temple they were in, which was the god of the moon. So he believed in himself that this is possibly a revival of his sorts, and he was now the knight's vengeance of the moon. So he started doing something like that, and then the committee, this group called the Committee, who was out to get the Werewolf by Night, which was written by Doug Munch, thought that this would be, they could hire this guy out and dress him in a silver suit, and so Moon Knight actually first appeared as a villain in the Marvel Universe, as an adversary to Werewolf by Night. And that's where he got his exposure, which then led to some appearances in Marvel Spotlight, in Defenders. He had a couple issue run where he teamed up with the Defenders, and then bled into a couple more other appearances with Spider-Man and Spectacular Spider-Man and Marvel 2-in-1 with The Thing. And then where he really got some momentum going was where Doug Munch ended up teaming up with him, and they started doing backup stories in the backup of a magazine published called The Hulk. And that's where the character really took some form and shape, and it seemed like they had a direction of what to do with the character. And there were some really good stories that they did in those backup stories. And it was from that exposure is where he really gained a lot of interest, especially internationally. He was more internationally known than American. And that's when they gave him his own book. And that's when it all started from that point, which they kind of gave you more of a background of the character, more of an origin in issue 1, and then built upon that. Gave him different personalities that he created, which ended up being multiple personalities, kind of a schizophrenic thing, which was an interesting take on the character. It was kind of his own way of presenting himself, of his own denial of his past, but so that he created these multiple personalities to help him fight crime, but yet there were also facets of himself as how he really would choose to be and how he wanted people to see himself. So it was an interesting take on a character. And then what was really neat was this underlying ambiguity of the Egyptian theme and possibly being, part of this god, that they'd be revived by this god, giving a second chance. And that was really interesting. That's where it really drew a different aspect of a character that you didn't read before, that it was always questioned. You never knew. Doug Munch intentionally did that, where he didn't want you to say, like, oh, yes, he is, being revived and controlled by Khonshu, or no, he's not. This is just his own made-up, thing. And this was constantly being questioned throughout the run. And that's what made it kind of interesting, made it neat, because there's times you would forget about it, or he'd start actually... He would deny his own Mark Spector personality, who he really was. You saw Stephen Grant and Jake Lockley and Moon Knight, but so you kind of see a loss of himself. But he was always questioning, whether this was something he was quested to do or something he's doing for himself. And in fact, that even like in the one moment they actually kind of revamped a Hamlet, thing with him, that he was holding the statue of Khonshu's head, and doing this whole scene like in Hamlet was, and then all of a sudden they give you this little thing where he'd be fighting somebody, and then there's like a force, like a wind came along and caught him, and it was like it was in Egypt at the story, so you kind of think, well, did Khonshu actually help him out there, or was there some sort of influence? And so that was neat. I thought that was a really interesting thing for me, and that's what really kind of suckered me into the book. And I thought it was very well done. It was very interesting and very new and fresh and unique. And then it stemmed after Bill Sienkiewicz left the book in issue 30. It started to fizzle, and then they ended up canceling the first run in issue 38. And then a couple of years later, they brought it back with a new take on it, where he was a 6-issue series called Fist of Khonshu, where it was the priests of Khonshu contacted him subconsciously and were actually driving him to take up the mantle of Moon Knight again, because he had sold the statue and given up the mantle and all the personalities and just was himself.
But your favorite issues, right, were the Stephen Platt issues, right?
Absolutely not. So I was getting to them. But so those 6 issues, that kind of didn't go nowhere. And then it started a new series, which was called Mark Spector Moon Knight, with Chuck Dixon doing the writing. And he had some interesting takes on it, but to me, it didn't have a lot of beef to it. It was very flat for me as a character. He did things to the character to me that I didn't like. Like there was a great storyline in the backup issues of the Hulk magazine where he was tracking down the serial killer who was taking out women, and ended up finding out it was his own brother, who he lost complete contact with throughout all his life with doing the CIA and all that stuff. So it was a beautiful story, very deep and emotional, and very compelling story. And his girlfriend Marlene was almost killed in it, and it was really done well. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of Chuck Dixon's run, well, Randall Specter didn't die. Here he's back, and they had to fight him again. And it was just kind of like, that shit just don't fly with me. You had something good, and now you just completely ruined it. Another character, Midnight Man, they had, which was a good, interesting villain that they brought up in the Munch Sienkiewicz series. They brought kind of like a sidekick kind of thing, made him into this other young man who idolized Moon Knight, decided to pick up the mantle of Midnight Man, because I think it was his uncle who was the actually original Midnight Man, and wanted to be his sidekick and learn and train, and Specter was like, I had no interest in doing so. So he ended up getting mentally incapacitated and getting really psycho on him, basically, and ended up becoming
almost like he was extremely intoxicated.
Yeah. So he ended up becoming like a villain almost to him, and actually
it was his synergy
exactly
to his
Mr. Incredible.
Mr. Incredible.
So there was things like that I just kind of didn't really suck me in, but that lasted 60 issues, which was more than his other runs.
Wow.
But and then it got really kind of weird. Like he got in issue 50 was a big turning point where he cut up his Avengers card and said no longer, because they were kind of questioning his ways and his methods of doing things. So he's like, "Screw you, the hell with you! I don't care." And but then these stories started to have this infusion with demons and little things running around and like these alternate realms and stuff, and it got really freaky, and it was a total different way of taking away from the character. I think the writer tried to focus on the supernatural aspect of the character and just totally lost it, and then ended up he had inadvertently killed Frenchie, which was his companion back in the mercenary days, and then eventually himself was killed, and that was the final issue at issue 60. But then they had 2 miniseries that came back out, and it was kind of neat because they pulled Doug Munch in again to bring him back into these miniseries. And Munch was like, well, what do you want me to do? Well, just to let you know, he died in the last, series. So he's like, well, what am I, So he brought it back again, that ambiguity, where it was like, did he die? Or his one villain was Morpheus, who could control dreams and control your mind. And it was like, did this actually happen? Or was he again revived by Khonshu? So it kind of brought all that back again, full circle. And then did another 4-issue miniseries, which was pretty decent. And then he ended up coming into the Marvel Knights as a team member in that, and then that's the last appearance that we've had.
Which was also by Chuck Dixon, wasn't it?
Yeah. He brought him back into that, which that was kind of a little better. That was better than what he was doing with him on his regular book, to me anyway. But then he took some serious damage in that. His company, who was funding the Marvel Knights, he was almost like the Tony Stark of the Avengers, but doing it for the Marvel Knights, and his company just got obliterated. So I mean, he lost just about everything. He lost his company. Himself was almost killed. So at that issue, he was like, well, I'm not sure if I'm going to do this anymore, and that's how it was kind of left. So,
but he's back now.
Now he's been appearing in Avengers and Marvel Team Up in the latest versions of that
Universe
book, and now in the Ultimate Universe they brought him back in that as well.
Well, I heard that they're gonna go get Stephen Platt. He's a bus driver or something, and they're gonna get him to draw this new series because he was really the traditional artist on Moon Knight is what you associate Moon Knight
Image
with.
Todd McFarlane ripoff artist is what he was. Is all he really.
And he liked drawing anything because he could just draw the moon. Like it would take up 3/4 of the page, and then he didn't have to draw anything else.
It was pitiful.
But there is a new series coming out.
There's a new series coming out called Moon Knight: The Bottom, written by The Bottom, called it's here we go with ass again.
Yeah, Moon Knight: The Bottom, and its sequel, Moon Knight:
written by
The Top.
novelist Charlie Huston, and going to be drawn by Avengers artist David Finch, and it's going to pick up after more or less that Marvel Knight storyline, where he's going to be at a low point in his life, assessing what has gone on in his life, what's happening in his life at this point, why he's there, and that's basically the whole basis behind the 6-issue miniseries.
Cool.
And that comes out in February next year, and that'll pick up from the writer himself, Charlie Huston, really dug the original Doug Munch, Bill Sienkiewicz stories, those first volume of stories, and that he's not. He's going to acknowledge the other stuff, but he's not going to really touch on it very much. He's going to more play to the original storyline because he really dug what Doug Munch did there with the ambiguity and the multiple personalities and things like that, and is going to play more towards that. And he said it's going to be a more dark storyline, that this character is not some gleaming superhero, that he's got some dark nature to him, so it's going to be a dark story, and you're going to find out that, from his past is not, even though he's trying to revenge his past and be, do good, but he's doing it with violence anyway, so it's kind of like, so he's really got a good take and a good grasp on the character, so really looking forward to it. But key issues for you, the Hulk backup stories were really good. Now, they've been reprinted into Baxter's, called this Moon Knight Special Edition, which were printed in the mid-'80s, and they're fairly inexpensive and easy to get a hold of, especially on eBay, but your comic stores usually have them. So it's 3 editions there. Those are great stories. The first volume is good. So those I would focus on those kind of stories first if you're going to learn about the character and go from there. Especially with a new series coming out because it's going to be more focus on that. So,
Cool.
There you go.
All right. It's that time, Peter. Don't give me that look. Like, oh my god, I can't be bothered with this. I suck at this.
Those of you playing at home, yes, I know. I have to put $1 in from last episode. I did not forget.
Yeah, you've been aced twice in a row now,
I
Peter.
have.
It's getting expensive for us here. This one is from Rick Gordon. So here we go. Question number 1. I've personally posted on the forum and blog as Maxim Glory.
Oh, yeah.
Who is Maxim Glory? Who created Maxim Glory? In which book did Maxim Glory have a one-shot guest appearance?
Are those all 3 questions? Or is
No,
that
that's
just
one question.
Who is Maxim Glory?
Tell you what, we need Scott Powers here with it. Jamie, do you know the answer to this?
Yeah, not really, no.
Say it again. Who's Maxim
Who is
Glory?
Maxim Glory?
No idea.
Who created Maxim Glory?
I'm going to say Alan Moore.
In which book did Maxim Glory have a one-shot guest appearance?
Supreme.
Okay.
Why not? You know? Took a chance.
Lead character from Times Squared trilogy by Howard Chaykin.
Oh.
Only 2 graphic novels released, I think, but a guest shot in American Flag by Chaykin also.
So did you know who it was?
Yeah,
Kevin?
yeah. I have those 2 graphic novels since Times Square, which is really good. It was really good, well done.
Cool.
Okay. Question 2. Old school Spidey question. Empire State University was not only an alma mater to everyone's favorite spider-bitten nerd, but also a breeding ground of baddies with tenure. Name 2 college professors who moonlighted as villains and their costumed alter egos.
Kurt Connors and Lizard. And... Empire State University. I guess I can go with an easy one. Otto Octavius, Dr. Octopus, but I don't know if that's right.
Kevin, do you know the answer?
Miles Warren, the Jackal.
The Jackal.
Where we get the whole clone story from.
But I got the Lizard right.
Yes,
right?
you did. Absolutely.
He actually doesn't list the Lizard here, which I think is interesting, but he says Miles Warren the Jackal, creepy perv cloner.
Which he was.
Punisher employer and poor educator. And he also says Dr. Clifton Shallot, the Vulture.
Kevin's shaking his head.
He says Vulture wannabe Dean Wormy.
Well, that was another one of the. I mean that was an incarnation of the Vulture when Adrian Toomes was not under the mantle that he took over, but Kurt Connors was at ESU.
Yeah.
So, and that would be the more widely known. I mean, that Vulture thing was a small little snippet of time in the Spidey universe compared to what influence Kurt Connors has. I don't know.
So you got half a question right.
0.5?
Yeah. Question 3.
See if this makes up for it.
First, Aunt May went to see Hair with Anna Mae Watson. Yikes, nudity. A few years later, she became a placard-carrying activist. What radical group did May Parker join?
Wow. Placard carrying what radical group?
Yes.
Oh my God. The Black Panthers. I have no idea.
Kevin?
Oh, you're partially right.
Am
It's
I?
the Grey Panthers.
The Grey Panthers.
Because it was
Oh,
elderly.
come on.
It was elderly, and they took up
The Grey. Is that what he has?
Yeah, the Grey Panthers.
Grey Panthers? Wow, that's a hell of a guess, though, for not knowing. Come on.
As soon as you said Black Panthers, then I was like, okay. But before
Yeah.
that, I couldn't even remember it myself. But
So what do I get? What's
Well,
my
you got your
tally?
0.5.
So 0.5.
So I think you
have to
owe
say-
50 cents.
So
to
I
the
owe 50
jar.
cents. Okay.
you can give him another 0.5 for the Panthers.
0.25.
But
that's
what's
something.
funny, in the subject of his email was actually no Herbie the Robot in the FF movie.
Thank
Maybe
you.
we'll see Herbie in FF2.
An incarnation of Herbie, not probably the one we're known valiantly as in the 70s FF.
Oh my God,
cartoon.
you're dropping change everywhere.
quick, get it.
So 50 cents and okay for the one.
And a buck
And a
from
buck
the
for
last
the
one.
other one.
You don't have 20 nickels there.
No, but I have $1 in there, so I'll just stick
okay.
$1 in.
All right. You're getting trounced here
Nailed,
lately.
man.
You need to...
Kevin, you need to let me borrow your Spider-Man run.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll take you a little while to read 500 issues.
Well, that's not including Spectacular, the 250
Yeah,
issue run
and
in
Web
Spectacular.
and
Those don't count.
Actually, some of the issues of Spectacular is where some of those things, like especially at ESU and things
Really?
came out, yeah, with like a tarantula and the lizard with Kirk Connors, and there was some good stuff in those earlier runs of the Peter Parker.
Well, thank God you guys are my judges.
Hey, we got another Geek of the Day. This one is from Damian Waldbrunn. He says, here's my Geek of the Day. A bit more of a rant than I hoped, but it's from the heart. So, let's check it out.
Alright guys, you see you're going to give somebody 2 minutes to rant? Here's mine. I have this topic that's near and dear to my heart. I'm a comic geek, as the rest of you are, but I'm also a comic book artist. I'm currently trying to publish my own book. Now, I'm not looking for free exposure or anything like that. What I'm trying to say is this. It's convention season. I've heard you all talk about it. You had some broadcasts from San Diego. Great stuff, by the way. My point is that you never hear anyone talk about Artist Alley. They talk about the Marvel booth, the DC booth, the scantily clad women bouncing around con. You hear all these things, about all this merchandise you can buy, but you never hear about these unsung heroes of the comic book industry. These aren't people who are backed by million-dollar corporations trying to sell their 30 or 40 books with movie tie-ins this month. These aren't game companies who are trying to get money back on a lucrative license to put for all the man hours they put into a game. These are people who have toiled just to get their message out there. These are people who are the backbone of this business. They're fans, but they're fans who want to make their mark, to be a part of this world that they love so much. I tell you this, if you're going to spend your money, if you're going to go to a convention, blow $50 on a ticket for 3 days, 2 days, even one, go to Artist Alley. Check it out. You may find something you like. You may find a lot of crap. But the point is, do something with that time. Help these people out. Granted, I'm jaded on the subject, but at least this year, I know I'm not going to be there. Didn't have the money for it. Of course, I couldn't actually be partnered with Activision or Time Warner, so I couldn't get there. But go see the people who are, because you'll like it. Trust me. Thanks a lot, guys.
Hey, guys.
Crap. Sorry.
I just wanted to add something. I don't know if he was talking to us when he kept saying you guys, or he was talking to the general listening audience. But I, for one, have said on this podcast to go to Artist Alley. I love walking up and down Artist Alley because
I'll back you up on that.
What you find. Now, granted, I don't like walking up and down first thing in the morning because I feel like I'm fresh meat at the lion cage. But while there are other people taking up some of their time, and I don't feel like I'm getting hawked at it everywhere I go, I like to walk up and down and look because I have found some stuff. We found Fade to Blue in Artist Alley. I found Jennifer is my monkey. Or no, my monkey's name is Jennifer in Artist Alley.
I found Touch My Monkey in Artist Alley.
Which is a very good, if you find those guys, it's a very good, very weird series, but very fun series. You'll find Golden Age artists sitting in Artist Alley with nobody around them. Talk to them. You definitely do
You'll
what
find Peter David.
Yeah,
We found
I
Peter
found
David,
Peter David just sitting there. But definitely, I agree with him. Go to Artist Alley. Make it one of your places that you go and you spend some of your time. Don't always be hanging around looking for that free T-shirt. Go there and talk to some people.
I couldn't agree more. That's Artist Alley is one of my high points of going to any convention. I look forward to that more than anything else. But I'm like you, Jamie. I don't do it first thing on the first day or anything like that. I usually go around, check all the retailer booths, and see what's going on. But then I like to spend just a day just going through Artist Alley, meeting new artists, new writers, new stuff, and also getting to talk and meet with the other guys and getting sketches done and
Yeah, when you talked about Alex Malev in
Yeah.
that Book of the Month Club episode, that was at Artist Alley.
that was
Oh,
our Alice Alley in
absolutely.
Philadelphia, and he was there. It was just Brian, myself, and him, and then basically, I guess another person came up at one point who was getting a sketch done, but that was it. So I mean, we had carte blanche with him for 2 hours. Same thing at the same show, Peter David. Nobody was sitting talking or even standing talking to him at all. But I've gotten to meet a lot of new talent coming in industry
And
because
at that
of
same
Artist Alley.
convention, we talked to Sean Chen for a while.
Absolutely. And that same day, I mean, that Sunday afternoon, we've met a lot of current talent and a lot of new talent and a lot of talent that's been out there for a long term.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most wonderful points of a convention that I look forward to the most.
Now, you guys kind of touched on it, and the part of Artist Alley that I don't like is I don't like when these guys try to sucker me into buying their book. Like, I'll buy the comics that I decide that I want to buy. Don't, beg me to come over and look at your book and tell me how great it is and tell me it's worth $3 and blah, 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 blah. I know that they're trying to make a living. I know that. But just stand back quietly. Let me peruse your book. If I have questions, I'll ask you. I mean, I might be in the minority, but I'm not, like, when I go into the store at the mall, I don't want 3 salespeople right on me in a heartbeat saying, "How are you doing today, sir? Can I help you? Is there anything you're looking for?" Blah, blah. Piss off, and I'll ask you when I need something. That's the kind of guy I am.
Like
So,
the car
you there.
salesman theory, or you walk on the car lot and they're automatically on top of you.
yeah, so, I mean, that's kind of the one thing that I hate, because it's like, the rule is, don't make eye contact with them, because as soon as you look at them, they're pitching you. And it's like, pal, quite frankly,
They smell the fear.
I have 500 trades that I need to buy before I'm buying your $3 book I never heard of. It might be the best book I've ever read, but I'm not buying it until I've heard of it. That's the way I am. I'm stingy with my money. I'm a cheap bastard. And $3 for your book that I never heard of, or $5 for a trade in a bin of discount. I'm buying that $5 trade before I'm buying your $3 book. That's no offense to you, and I know the guys work real hard. And I mean, when we were at Chicago trying to sell Crusaders videos for $20, we were in those guys' shoes, so I understand that. But that's not how I spend my money. Now, I will walk through and I will talk to you if I see something that I like, but mainly I'm looking for the big name artists that are hiding in Artist Alley. That's what I go to Artist Alley for, And when you become a big name artist, I'll look for you in Artist Alley.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot there at Wizard World Philly this year. I saw a lot of people that I recognized from smaller press and things like that, and I went up and we gave out CDs, and I bought some of their books and I read them, and they were decent. Some of them were pretty decent, and so I do enjoy it. And like you said, if something catches my eye, I am going to go get it. And every year, I do see things like bigger, like Craig. I think it's Craig Thompson's blankets. I saw one time, and I was like, I want to pick it up, but like you said, it's either at the end of the day and my money's shot for that day, and I'm just like, damn. But no, we do. I support that Artist Alley.
And I'll be honest, I thought this year down in Philly, Artist Alley was the biggest it's been of all the 3 or 4 years
definitely.
that it's been down there.
Yeah, I love going down Artist Alley. This year I spent a little more time at the Palisades booth just because I know those guys than what I normally would. So, but I do go down Artist Alley. I like looking at the stuff, look at the sketches. I picked up a great Val Semek's page last year from one of the JLA books that he did that featured Batman that I've been looking for. So, yeah, I love it.
I was irritated. In San Diego, some guy tried to pitch me his book, and it was about, like, drunken frat boys. It's like, okay, first of all, pal, I don't drink, so I normally don't find drunken humor very amusing. It's like, you're just pitching this crap to anyone, and you have no idea. Like, I'd be the last person on earth to buy a comic book about drunken frat boys. So again, shut up. Let me peruse. As soon as I saw the title, which was, stupid frat boy tricks or something, it's like I glaze right over. I'm not going anywhere near your booth. You could be the next friggin' Jim Lee. I'm not looking at your book because it's a stupid, that's not interesting to me. So again, like, just let me alone, sit back, be accessible, don't be hiding and talking to your pal and not paying any attention. But don't give me the pressure treatment.
Don't hound.
Yeah, I don't deal with that. So
And unfortunately, I know that they can't probably do that this much, like where they're like, I know they probably have to sell them at cover price, but if you make it a little more,
Well, that's the
like
other thing.
those Fade from Blue guys,
Yeah.
man, they handed those
They
issues
were
out
great.
#1
Yeah.
for free.
That's the thing. I don't necessarily expect it to be free, but
No,
if you could give it to me for $1, I mean, or whatever. Like, I don't want you to lose money on it, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Give some
when we
incentive.
published Z, the rule was
You admit that?
Diamond. It's 50% to sell to Diamond. So if
Right.
it's a $3 comic book, Diamond's paying $1.50 for it. Or no, Diamond's paying half of $1.50 because the comic book store is paying $1.50 for a $3 book. Diamond's paying 75 cents. So we got it printed up for like 38 cents an issue. So I could easily have sold that book for $1, and I would have made 62 cents profit.
right.
So when they're trying to sell me the book for $3, I go, I can appreciate your desire to pay for the booth and pay for the printing of the book and everything. But if you want me to read a book I never heard of, never read it, never saw anything mentioned, you're gonna. I mean, $3 is a lot of money. I
Yeah.
barely buy well-known comics that I love for $3. At least give it to me for $2 or $1.50.
It all
something.
depends, though. I mean, because I've checked into self-publishing quite a few times, recently in the past, 5 years, and your take on the book till you finally get it published and get it into Diamond, get it going, is usually over $2. So I mean, it's usually very difficult. That's why I found it unusual for the Fade from Blue guys for what they were selling their books for, and especially if you didn't read.
Oh yeah, they were cover price $1.50, by the way.
Yeah.
yeah. Those
So
first,
that was very unusual to see that price on a book, because I know what it costs to get a book published with a color cover and black and white interior. It's not cheap. I can't quote prices at this moment, but it's not cheap. And like I said, even the printing, but then you go and put it into solicitation for Diamond, and they are just like the pirates of comic industry, and it is amazing how much they take off.
We talked about how to lower the cost of comics, and that is
That's
stick
the
it
big
to
thing.
Diamond, because
Absolutely.
they're raping. I mean, like I said, I was there. We paid 38 cents, and then Diamond only bought it from us for like 60-some cents. So we were making 20-some cents or whatever.
And then
per
charging
issue.
the retailers.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh my god,
More than twice
So
that
we had
much,
to
so.
sell a boatload of issues to cover the cost. I mean, we lost money on it. We never came close to getting that many.
So if you look at $3 book and you look who's making the most profit, like a Marvel book or a DC book at $3, Diamond's making almost more profit than anybody. And you look at the publisher who's making. Now, granted, they have better
they're a
publishing
monopoly.
price. They're a monopoly.
They're a monopoly.
Even
There
though they
used
were
to be a
taken to
couple
court,
of them, and now that's all.
they were
Diamond.
taken to court, and the courts decided they were not a monopoly. How
can that
Yeah,
be?
I don't know,
I don't
because there
understand
are other distributors.
But
So
not
they-
in the Northeast.
Not in the
Yeah,
Northeast,
not in
but
the
it
Northeast.
was because they were taken to
That's
court,
crazy.
and I could not believe that they got away with what they got away with. But
Well, there was that time
they
Marvel
make the
even
most
tried to
money
do
on
it.
a book.
Marvel tried to deliver their own books, and that failed.
Yeah. So if you can come up with a way to do it, I mean, if we can go Comic Geek Speak distribution,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But it's tough. It's tough being a self-publisher, trying to get a book out, because if you want to get it out to the general public and put it into Diamond's format, you just chunked on half of your cost of your book. Easy.
Yeah.
And that's a shame. I think that's a terrible shame. And I think if anything you're going to do for the comic industry, that is something that needs to be handled. Anything as far as publisher costs and what they're paying the professionals to do it is inconsequential compared to what Diamond is raping the
I
industry
mean,
for.
granted, like paperbacks and hardcover books, novels, just regular books, they sell more copies per book than comics do, but there's how many publishers for books,
That's right.
and distribution. It's like there's got to be a way. Mark Alessi, you tried the cross-gen thing. Now, how about going into spending all your money into, if you have any money left,
Distribution.
go into distribution. You know what I mean? Like some millionaires just got to start it up on the West Coast maybe this time, so that we can split the country in half. And just I don't know. It's just something's got to happen with that.
I mean, I watched to put it in some sort of perspective, I watched a show on eBay, about eBay. It was like a little informative show about eBay. And throughout the process of this show, giving you the history of eBay and how it works and what's going on with it, one of the people they talked to about eBay was Steve Geppi. And how much he spends on eBay will blow your freaking mind. Millions of dollars a year that he spends on eBay buying stuff.
Jeez.
So that just kind of puts perspective of what...
How
I'm
much
talking
money
like
he's
$5
making.
million
Yeah.
that he spends.
This is
on-
the guy who owns Diamond.
He owns
Yeah.
Diamond Distribution. So that gives you an idea of what is in the realm of what's
Yeah.
going on.
Now this, if there are any professionals listening to us at all, this is the topic that I would love to hear their thoughts
Absolutely.
on. Like how do we change it? How does the industry change that? Because that has, like you said, listen to that markup, 38 cents to $3. My God.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the comic shops are getting 50% of that money. So the comic shop is making more money than Diamond is.
And that's actually not totally true of everybody. You have to meet, because I know, having worked, I know, and I'm not going to reveal anything, but you had to meet a certain amount to get, it was a graduated discount. If you met a certain amount, you got 35%.
From Diamond.
From Diamond. If you met a second amount, you got 45%.
Yep.
If you met a third, I believe 55% was the highest you could get. Possibly 65, but I think 55% was the highest, but you had to order everything.
Right.
And that's the way it goes. So it wasn't even that. I mean, they maybe were only giving half of their customers a 45% discount, and maybe a quarter of those customers were getting the 50% discount. I know we usually were in that range of the top discounts, but that was when he had 2 stores, and he was, and you're talking at more of the height of the market or the industry, or the boom of the comic books.
Right. Well, that's when I worked there, and
yeah.
I remember seeing the sheets and going, it was basically 50%.
But then, if it's a smaller shop, they sometimes don't get things, right? I would imagine some of those variant cover retailer incentives.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to get that kind of stuff.
Right.
They weren't getting.
So again, it's Diamond dictating the market.
Well, and Diamond screwed us with Crusaders too, because we wanted to get into previews because they have a video section in previews, and we approached them and they said, "Oh, we don't have any room in the video section because it's all anime." So
they actually did.
You could pay, but you'd get like on the last page or something, and they really blew us off or something, right?
Well, the thing was, when we talked to them about it, you can solicit anything in Diamond in the previews. The thing is, especially with videos, and that's where it gets different as far as comics. If you don't get a certain amount of orders from that solicitation in previews, they don't honor the orders.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if you have it in there or not.
But you still had to pay to get into previews.
Well, you got to. Yeah, I mean, you got to
right,
put
that
it
was
in.
the thing.
Right.
It cost a couple $100 or whatever or something.
I don't remember those details. I don't remember that. All I remember from them is the fact that if you didn't have reach a certain amount of orders, like it was 200 or 250 videos or whatever. If you didn't get more than 250 videos for that month's previews in that order, they just didn't honor it, and you were thrown out of the order form.
Right. So you paid your $100 or whatever to have your submission in previews. You get 225 orders, which would have been friggin' awesome for us.
I don't think you pay to go into previews. The whole thing with previews is you pay part of Diamond once the product has been ordered, purchased, and then shipped, and then.
Well, I think there was at least a nominal fee to have your thing. At least it was when I did Z many moons ago or whatever. I'm pretty sure.
But I know that the main thing is where they get their money is when they actually sell the stuff, because then that's when they take their percentage.
Because there must have been some fee, because otherwise we would have had nothing to lose. If we could have said, sure, throw it in, submit it. If we get enough orders,
maybe
we'll sell them. If we don't, we didn't lose anything. But the whole point was, do we really think we're going to sell 500 videos, and is it worth the $100 or whatever we have to spend to not sell any at all if we get fewer than 500 orders? So there was some deal there. It was like, God damn, because we needed to sell videos.
Yeah, we wanted. I mean, that was our way of recouping our costs, but
right.
And that was the main option for Generation, but it did. It cost us money. It was something. Well, I think again, it was part to the fact that what we wanted to sell the video for, and then having to solicit it through Diamond,
right?
And their take on it, then what we would actually make per video. So it would generate finally what we had to charge per video to sell that. And then when we found out how much we would make per video, and then we had to acclimate a certain amount for them to actually even put it into the final order, then it was ridiculous. It was basically what it all amounted to.
And we had to pay to ship the videos to them too, I think, or something. So
it was a mess. It was just a mess. It was nothing. I mean, it was totally an eye-opening experience, is what it really was.
If there are any listeners out there that can think of an independent small press book that's self-publishing and that gets it out there, let me know, because I'd love to know. I can't think right now. Is there something that's not through Diamond that is really on the charts? You know what I mean? Or not? Or even in your mind. It's hard to think about.
But it affects a lot of the industry, because I love Mike Grell, And I loved his John Sable back in the 80s. I loved reading that story. It was my first non-superhero book that I've ever read, and I enjoy the character. And now he's brought him back. And it's great. I paged through them, and they look beautiful. But it's like $4 a comic. And I'm like, I can't spend $4 an issue every month or so for that book. And I thought, well, I'll get the trade. And he's selling like a trade, which would normally be 6-8 issues, which would be $14-15. He's selling for $20-25. And I'm like, geez, So it's very, it really does make a difference.
See, this has to be the reason why we get such incredible discounts by using online, because they have low overhead.
Sure.
Exactly.
They have no store to run. They have no employees. Basically no
Few
employees.
employees.
Few employees.
So they're still making something. They're making a small portion, but they're still making something.
And they're
they're
able to give us the
and it's
discounts
sheer
that they
volume
get.
that makes up their numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
If they're getting the 55% discount or whatever, and they're selling it for 35%, and they're still making 20%.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And if they're selling big numbers, that 20% is all they need. If they don't have to worry about the rent and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Leasing a store and having storage space, maybe a warehouse or something like that. So, yeah.
Which does make it harder on your local comic shops.
Absolutely.
I understand that, it's just, you got to go where the discount is, and unfortunately, if you're not going to attack the problem,
Right.
you got to go, you got to do something about it.
Absolutely.
So, that's an interesting, we never talked about that before.
No,
it
we
never came
haven't,
up, has it?
It just riled us all
I
up
know.
now.
But it all kind of fit into what we had started in the other episode when we were talking about how to revamp the industry.
industry.
And that is, to me, now it's just come out naturally. In fact, to me, that is the most important thing to do.
Yeah.
Because that will
And you
that will
never
drastically
hear anybody talk about
No.
it. I mean, because it's just such the norm.
Well,
it's such the
it's
norm.
just
like
accepted.
that.
basically that's it. That's it.
And that's how, when we were doing Z, that's how we arrived at our cover price. I don't remember what our cover price was, but I think it was $275 or something. But we worked backwards from the cover price. Like, what cover price do we have to market at so that we can get, enough cents per copy that we can hopefully break even? Because otherwise, because we'd love to publish a book for $1.50. Wasn't going to happen. And this was 1994 when comics were not that expensive. So us charging $275 for an independent book, when Marvel's books were $1.50 or $1.25 or probably $1.50. So it's like, damn, we want people to shell out an extra $1.25.
And it kind of then makes it understandable why they cancel certain books.
That's right.
It's hard to keep a $2.95, $2.50 book on the market. If it's only selling 17,000 copies, and they can't be making money.
That's what Quesada and Jemis have always spoken about ever since they took over in Marvel's, the fact that a book can sell that it actually would possibly cover its costs, but it's not making profit. So if it's not going to make profit, they cannot put the time and effort into publishing it. It's just not business savvy. So, and that's why they ended up canceling a couple of the titles, and that's what happens. That whole process happens. And they've always said that it's not such a strenuous issue with DC because they had the parent company of Time Warner, so it's not such a strenuous thing with them. So it's harder on Marvel and the independent books that they have this sort of thing that they have to deal with. And if a book breaks even or barely breaks even, it's almost not worth it for them to go through it.
I guess that's why you get more original graphic novels from DC.
Right.
They're not so rushed in their trade program.
Quesada has said that many a time that it's just not worth them to sit and do a 64-page graphic novel anymore and publish it. It doesn't generate enough income for them to make it worthwhile.
Because those Vertigo books, they don't sell huge numbers, but they're still on the shelf.
That's right.
Well, and I was thinking about this because we were busting, and I do still complain about DC's trade schedule. But the one thing that DC trades religiously and almost immediately is Vertigo stuff. But Vertigo is very linear. You can't really jump into the middle as nicely as you can with maybe a superhero book.
Plus, they know they can attract different other types of readers.
But so they keep their trades coming, and they're always available. Number 1 through, like I just read the 5th Why the Last Man. You can still buy 1 through 4, no problem, because you have to buy 1 through 4 if you really want to know what's going on. And they do all their Vertigo lines are like that. They're all neatly numbered down at the bottom, Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3. And so they know what they have to trade.
That's right.
And then they know what they don't have to trade because we're all suckers for that. But, this whole thing is like, it just made me think, again, I was talking last time or 2 times ago about the, possibility of compendiums. And we were just talking about, a book has to sell X number of copies to make money, and you have to lower the cost so much. But adding additional pages is much cheaper than the initial 32 pages. That's the expensive part. You want another 32 pages, that's like half of the cost of the first 32 pages.
Right.
So why don't they start doing like these double flip book things, but combine it with 2 titles? You know, say, well, these 2 titles are close to cancellation. Let's put them in one book and see if we can't. But the price doesn't have to be double. Instead of $6 a book, it can be $4.50. Now you're getting 2 comics for $4.50, and maybe they can save both of those comics, or do something. Like, I think that's got to be the answer, because it gets you over that hurdle.
It's a possible Band-Aid on the situation. But I think, again, you're not getting to the root of the problem.
Well, why not, when they do a trade of, like...
That's a good idea, though.
Yeah. If they do a trade of Y the Last Man, throw in an issue of 100 bullets in the back of it, Instead of doing advertising of just one page, throw an entire issue in.
And we were talking about the paper issue, and I just read that Y trade, and it's on, like, cheap, like, newsprint kind of paper. And the colors look fine. There aren't any issues with that. So it's like, well, so we don't have to have glossy paper in all our trades. We don't have to have glossy paper in our friggin' monthly comics.
I don't want glossy paper.
A lot of those trades are done in that.
It's beautiful.
Like, it's not
like
newsprint,
a step above
newsprint. It's more of a bleached process, and it's a heavier paper than newsprint. But it's
not
still a lower grade
real
paper than it
thick,
is
glossy
from.
paper.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how much is this Captain
That's
America?
$22.
22.
For 7 issues.
And it's glossy.
Yeah, it's glossy. Right.
How many issues?
7.
For hardcover.
So it's basically $3 an issue, which is cover price.
Is it oversized?
No, it's regular size.
That's a regular comic size?
Yeah. But now I got that at 50% off, so,
Right.
It makes it worthwhile.
Have you ever seen a comic?
I have seen a comic, and I'm like, this looks larger than me for some reason. It just looked larger.
It's all front. He's faking
it's
it.
that alcoholic perspective you have.
Yeah.
It just looks.
And then it's printed upside down yet, so throw that away.
So they could lower the cost by printing on this less expensive paper, and I think they could do it with the monthly comics. But now again, you have to see the numbers from the printer. It could save all of 10 cents by printing on the cheaper paper.
Maybe.
And,
well, the thing is...
Right, and by the time you filter in all those discounts, what are they going to do? Lower the cost a penny? It's $2.98 instead of $2.99 because we use cheaper paper. So, I don't know what the
Again, going into self-publishing, I know that when we had talked about doing a miniseries, we were thinking about doing a 6-issue miniseries, and we're looking at the costs of producing a single issue, and then we got a price to do it as all in one trade, as one big thing, and it was so much cheaper to do it as all 6 issues at one time in a trade paperback format, same size as a comic, than it was to produce all 6 issues individually and publish them that way.
What's the Shiznit pimp view of all this? Because he's been quiet.
I really don't know. I mean, I've been kicking it around in my mind, and
we're all talking about stuff that we're not really sure of.
The compendium for me, just no. I don't want that. I want to buy the book that I want. I don't. If I'm not buying it, I'm of the opinion that if I'm not buying it, I don't want it. I pick up enough of stuff that looks interesting to me that I don't need to be force-fed some other stuff. I mean, if you all remember years and years ago when they did Action Comics Weekly, and that was basically DC tried to do a compendium each week of like 4 or 5 different stories. I found myself picking it up, and I would only read maybe 2 or 3 of those stories. There was always at least one story in that I didn't care about.
It's probably the Wild Dogs serial.
Well, that was the best. No, it wasn't. Trust me. But I just, the compendium is not the answer for me. To me it would be just either a moratorium on price raising, and figure out what you have to do to lower the price or keep the price where it is right now. Because I do agree with Kevin, $4 is a lot for some of those IDW books. They are gorgeous, and I have been picking up like the John Sable and the Tim Truman, John Ostrander, Grimjack series. Gorgeous, but there are also other stuff there that I would like to pick up, but I don't. Some of the CSI books I would like to keep getting, but again, $4 a pop is just a little bit too much for me. So it really is a matter of price as far as I'm concerned.
It all goes back to Diamond, I guess.
Yeah.
Does it? I mean, it has to.
All goes back to the circle.
Yeah.
If you can shave some money out of Diamond and you can shave some money on cost by using lesser quality paper, I'm all for it. You know, I mean, even if it only brings the book down a quarter, 50 cents, that's
It's still a quarter,
that's
50 cents.
If anybody out there has Steve Geppe's phone number,
Well,
we want it.
It's
An
competition.
address and
It's competition. It really
Yeah,
truly
yeah,
is. I mean,
yeah.
I look at our local cable company.
I was just going to say that.
Comcast, man.
Who, you know, I'm paying, and I mean, you say, well, then don't buy everything I'm buying, but I like HBO. There's some Showtime shows I like, and right now I'm paying $104 a month for cable. Okay,
You know how much I paid in New York for probably more channels than what you got down here?
I'm sure
but
more
you
channels.
know why?
Because they have competition.
They have competition. It's
We
state
paid $40 a month.
Because I
for all
talked
that
about
stuff.
this to Comcast directly, and it's state mandated. In the state of Pennsylvania, it's not mandated that other cable companies can compete in the same area.
Yep,
They are
that's right.
designated for a certain area, so they can charge whatever the hell they want.
That's right.
Whereas, like you had in New York, because I would remember when I would stay at your place, I'd go, holy shit, look at all these channels and look at all you got, and you're paying less than I am, and I
Yep.
don't have half of what you have.
Yep. And the price keeps going up, and the channels keep going away.
and
So
I
again, it's being mandated by a higher source.
Yeah, I didn't need all those, forget it.
and I know people say the dish, go to the dish, blah blah blah.
Not Dish.
I
Nah.
don't
No.
like the dish. I like what I'm getting from the cable, but I would like to see some competition where I could make a choice between the cables.
That's right.
And that's to
I have
me,
DirecTV and I love it.
That's to me what the industry needs. It needs a competition. Now, unfortunately, and I'm going back and we're dragging this one on. When Diamond became the only distributor, there was a huge war between Marvel wanted to do their own distributing, that was a total f up because they tried to do it themselves and they didn't have the facilities and so on and so forth. It went. There was a whole lot of signing exclusive deals between Diamond Comics and Capital. I guess Capital Comics.
I thought there was
sounds
Capital
right.
Distribution.
Yes,
Capital
yeah.
Distribution. And unfortunately, Capital got like kitchen sink, while Diamond got DC.
Right.
And I remember.
What was that Canadian company that was the distributor for Canada?
Is there a Gemstone, or was that Diamond?
That's I think that's Diamond too, but it's like gamers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I mean, there was just like all kinds of crap that went on, and finally, it was just Diamond stood through and persevered, and that's where we are right now. So it's just a mess.
So bottom line, let's get lottery tickets and win the lottery, and we'll start our own distribution,
there you
and
go.
we'll compete
No,
against.
you know what?
Diamond.
If I win the lottery, I don't freaking care anymore. I'll just buy whatever comics I want.
Yeah, you will, because you can't be paying tax on all that
I
money. You
won't
gotta
lose
do
any
something
money.
with it.
I'll just single-handedly keep DCB service in business. I'll just buy lots of books from
Well,
them.
we could make DCB service into a distribution
service.
There you go. They'll just order so much volume that they can order directly
Well,
from
you just
the
got to go
people.
right to the publisher and work out a deal. Beat the numbers from.
I mean, I guess that's really all it's going to take. All it's going to take is one big publisher to go, "What? We found a new place," and try it out. I know Marvel tried it.
I
but
mean, you got to give credit for Marvel for at least attempting to do
Right.
something.
That's right.
they
you
just
know,
don't
they
have the
tried to-
financial backing. I
Well,
mean,
they went to
DC
try to
kinda
go
does.
through, was it Heroes World through New Jersey? Was what they tried to do, and they tried to work it out with them to be able to.
Oh, there's your first mistake there, New
Well,
Jersey.
I know, but at least they recognized the problem and they tried to do something about it, but it did fail. But so you can see that a major publisher realizes that this is an actual issue. So.
Yeah.
Well, and so do pros. I do read articles every now and then where when they ask them the same question about like the industry, and a couple of them will bring up Diamond in their practices, and it's
out there.
So there you go.
We're scratching our heads. We don't know. We need more info.
Actually, I think the market is selling American comics overseas because these poor bastards can't get any of our books, and they all want them, and they can't get them.
Yeah, send them to El Salvador. That's what
right,
we do.
yes.
Los Comiquicos.
And Australia, and the UK sometimes
Guam.
too.
There was a couple comics when I was over in England that I got, and they were the one I got specifically. This was back in like 1990, and they were a little bit behind, but they had Justice League and Superman together. So you got an issue of the Giffen Justice League, and then you got an issue of Superman at that time, bound together in a larger format.
Yeah, see, they do that.
Britain
in
does
forum.
do a lot
And
with
one guy on the forum even, or maybe he sent an email. I don't remember, but a guy said, he's from the UK, and he has they have compendiums that have 3 or 4 comics in them, and he's getting them all, and they're cheaper and whatever, and he's had them for years.
And they're hardback. I have some. I have some that I bought from them. You know, and they'll put a couple issues of a couple different heroes into one book, sell it, and it's in a hardback format.
No, the one I had was paperback, but it was only 2 issues.
See, I have a couple that are all hardback. So
but back then they were doing Action Force.
Well, years
like
ago,
that,
when they did Action Force and Captain Britain.
Yep.
And
are they black and white?
Yeah.
No, color.
Color.
Well, the ones Action Force was color. Captain Britain was black. Captain Britain was color then too.
My Justice League and stuff. My Doctor Who that I had was color.
So I guess. Are they not selling as much overseas? Is that why they're able to do that, or they're willing to take?
I don't know if it's an import thing or a cost thing or tax
agreement that they make or whatever. I don't know.
So they
by paper.
Publish them. Well, Marvel used to have a branch, Marvel UK. They used to have
that's right.
They used to publish books out of there, and maybe that was their way of trying to get around all that. But you can see it on eBay a lot of times. You'll see these annuals they call them on sale, and that's what they are. They're compendiums of a couple issues put into a hardback form and sold for a couple bucks. So.
Yeah, but those are usually reprints or year-old comics
compared
to what we get.
But that's how they get them. And, that's their only way of getting them.
I'll try to dig that up. I know I have it somewhere. Since it's a bigger format, it of course doesn't fit in my comic boxes, so I have it somewhere safe, and I just have to figure out what box I have that safely tucked away.
That's why I always get. That's why when I do my eBay auctions, I open it up worldwide because I know there are people out there who want. If somebody here may not want Amazing Man 1 through 12, but somebody else out, somebody who can't get it might.
All right, well, I think we have definitely rambled on long enough for this episode. So, that brings us to the end. If you want to send us an email, send it to comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. That's also where you can send your Stump the Rios questions. Again, if you can stump the Rios, we will send you a prize. And also your Geek of the Day.
Your video, your anime or manga entry.
That's right. Check out our blog at comicgeekspeak.blogspot.com. For more information on the Comic Podcast Network, go to comicspodcast.com. We give a big thanks to Bob at GameCircuit.net for hosting our files. Vote for us at Podcast Alley and subscribe to us through iTunes, please. If you want, you can buy a t-shirt from us. $10 includes shipping. You can do that on our blog. And again, we'd like to remind you to check out worldfamouscomics.com for all your comics news and information. And as always, we are uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time. See you next time.
Bye.
See you.